Hi friends, are you wondering what to plant in your garden this December? Well, stick around because I'm going to share with you what vegetables you can start, the projects to get done, and a special tip that will help you get the most out of your garden. I'll also be sharing a very special giveaway at the end of this video that you will not want to miss, so stay tuned. It's what we've all been waiting for. Patrina here with Homegrown Florida. If you're new to the channel, I live in Central Florida on the West Coast in 9A. If you are south of me, this video will give you a little head start, and if you're north of me, then this video will help remind you of anything you might have missed that you need to get in the garden ASAP. Everything we're going to be discussing will work for lots of warm weather climates, regardless if you are in Florida, Arizona, Texas, California, particularly Southern California. There are a lot of states that have similar climates to my location where it is now prime growing season, as long as you stick to the right vegetables. A lot of the seeds we started last month in the garden are going to be pretty similar to what we're going to be starting this month, with the exception of the warm season crops that are now outside of the proper season, unless you are in South Florida where you have more time. We're very close to our very first frost date, so we need to stick to our cool season crops and leave those warm season crops behind. It doesn't mean you need to pull these plants yet. I let mine go until the first frost gets them. So let's talk about what you can start from seed. Beets. Love beets, but for me they take forever to grow. Broccoli is perfect this time of year. They love the cold weather, and even a frost is not going to bother them. Brussels sprouts can be a little bit tricky because they have a long growing season and they need to be at a certain height when you hit the coldest of weather. So you can try putting them in now in hopes that we have a nice, really cold January and February. Cabbage, that's another one, really great to grow in the brassica family for this time of year. Chinese cabbage, I use these almost like a lettuce, and they grow super well. You can do a cut and come again with them. Carrots, you can keep planting carrots. They will continue to grow, but you got to think that they take a really long time to grow, and probably around the January time frame we're probably going to stop growing carrots because they will have not enough time to really get fully mature by the time it's time to pull them. Cauliflower, just like broccoli, grows great this time of year. Get that in the ground. Celery is very similar to Brussels sprouts in that it needs some cold weather, and so you need to get them in the ground now if you want a chance of having celery that is tastes good, because when celery gets hot it has like a very bitter, not so great flavor. Collards are amazing. If you can get them started now, they will continue to grow all the way into our hot climates as long as they're mature when they get to that point. And kale is just like collards in that regard as well. If you get them planted now and they're full grown by the time the warm weather hits, they will continue to produce and you can continue to harvest from them. Kohlrabi is a great brassica. I love this one because it reminds me of crunchy broccoli, but I find that it is faster to harvest and it grows longer into the heat, so you can keep planting it even after we have stopped planting broccoli. Lettuce is another great one, really quick crop to grow during the winter. Mustard, love mustard. I use it in a lot of like cooked greens dishes, as well as we mix it into our salads, and it grows in that cut and come again method. Bunching onions, we're kind of outside of the window of growing bulbing onions, but you can put bunching onions in and they will grow all year round here, even in the summer. Peas love cool weather. They don't necessarily love frosts and freezes, so you may want to give them just a tiny bit of protection if you are going to get one of those cold snaps through. I normally don't protect them, and some of the top of them die off, but they usually will regrow, or I'll put another succession planting down and they'll just keep growing. Radishes do amazing. They are pretty much bomb-proof in this weather. Spinach. Oh, spinach. I have not had the best luck with spinach. It always bolts. It doesn't seem to matter how cool it gets down here. Spinach just doesn't seem to like it, but maybe you have a better way of growing it, or maybe you know a trick that I don't know. So spinach is on the list. Swiss chard, great green to grow during the winter, and it is very similar to the kale and the collards, that it will continue to grow even when we start to get some warm weather. And then turnips, of course. Turnips are kind of like radishes, but they take a little bit longer, and they are great for this time of year. For those in North Florida, you want to stick to the super cold hardy varieties. Maybe pause on the peas for a month. You guys are going to experience some frost and possibly some freezes, so you want to stick to things that can handle it. Folks down in South Florida, you can add to your list things like white potatoes, tomatoes, tomatillos, peppers, beans, and melons. You don't typically get frost, so the warm weather crops should do well throughout the whole winter, although they may grow a little bit slower since we have shorter daylight hours through the winter. Expect your days to harvest to be about 2 to 4 weeks longer than what the package says. But don't worry, North and Central Florida gardeners, those warm weather plants are right around the corner for us, so hang tight, we are almost there. Don't forget to hit that notification bell below. You'll be the first to know whenever I release a new video packed with gardening tips, tricks, and inspiration. So go ahead, give that bell a little tap, and let's stay connected. Now let's jump into the projects for this month. If you didn't plant your garlic last month, you have till the end of this month to get it in. Aim for a nice cold front to come through to plant it. Since we're in a warm climate, you want to make sure you vernalized your garlic. This just means that you place the garlic in the refrigerator for 6 to 12 weeks. This stimulates a cold cycle that garlic needs in order for it to know to bulb. If you didn't do this weeks ago, your only option at this point is to try and buy pre-vernalized garlic. These are a little hard to find, but there are options out there, especially seed garlic from Florida. So if they grow it here, check Etsy and check Facebook. They have some good options out there. You can still try to plant your garlic not vernalized, but just keep your expectations low. You may not get bulbs, but you probably will still get a plant that tastes like garlic that you can dry and make garlic powder from, or eat it fresh. It will not keep for long in your pantry, so have a plan for it, like drying or preserving in some way. Another thing you'll want to get done this month is taking out your warm season crops like tomatoes, cucumbers, squashes, and beans. This advice is mainly for North and Central Florida. South Florida, you guys leave them in, you're fine. But with the cooler weather, they have probably really started to slow down, and the minute a frost comes through, it's going to take them out really easy. If you do have a frost approaching, I strongly encourage you to pull all the fruit, even if it's not mature. I know there's a lot of debate out there, but trust me with this, tomatoes will ripen off the vine, even if they're picked pretty early and green. What you're looking for is that they have reached their mature size. And if that dark green is starting to become light green, I have had great success with them ripening off the vine. There is a certain amount of loss. I do lose probably 10% of them when I do this, but that's better than losing 100% in a frost. Cucumbers can be eaten at really any size. So if you have a frost coming through, pick them small. They're great for like a little snacking pickle or a little snacking cucumber. It's great. Beans are another one that can be picked at small sizes. It's fine. For squash, if it's summer squash, you can also do the same thing and pick them small. But for winter squash, your only option here is you have to harvest it early and just eat it as a summer squash. But if the winter squash has started to harden or it's starting to change colors, you can cut it off, bring it inside, and set it in your pantry, and it should ripen to color in your pantry. It won't last as long as like a fully ripened one would, but it's still very nice and sweet, and mine have lasted about 2 or 3 months this way. If you would rather, you can leave your warm season crops out in the garden and cover them with frost blankets or something similar, but just be aware if that doesn't work, the fruit won't be good for eating or canning. You could lose your entire crop. It's a decision you will have to make for your home and garden. I usually do a combination such as picking most of the mature tomatoes, and then I cover the plant to see if I can keep them going for another couple weeks to get a second harvest. I feel like that's like the best of both worlds. After the frost, it's not uncommon for your lettuce and greens to start to bolt. The way our winters work is we will have days in the 70s and 80s, and then it will drop down into the 30s for a night or two, and then it will jump back up to 70s and 80s. These wild swings of hot and then cold then hot freaks the plants out. Then they start pushing to reproduce themselves because they think they're about to die. So prepare for that by planting some succession plants right when you start hearing that the weather is about to swing. Believe it or not, young seedlings handle these swings way better than mature plants. Always have some backups ready. Now let's discuss the special tip for the month. It feels like we just got done planting our fall and winter season, but it is now time to start planning for spring. Spring, y'all, craziness, I don't know. It's almost here. Spring is interesting here in Florida because spring for us is actually winter for everyone else in the country. This is our last big push for our winter crops, but it's also the time when we need to focus on getting the warm season crops back in and growing fast because we are up against a pest and heat pressure timeline. Your goal is going to be to try to get them planted, grown, and harvested, or at least close to harvest, before the bugs start again and the fungal issues begin. Spring is our drought season, which means all those things that struggle with blight and fungal issues will do well this time of year. There are certain crops that I don't grow in fall that I do grow in spring, like corn, dry beans, large-sized tomatoes, melons, watermelons, peppers, and winter squash, especially the really long day to harvest ones. Since I don't have to worry about frost and the fungal issues should be down and pest pressures are down, I can grow things a bit longer than I could if I was growing them in fall. I know it seems a bit early, but surprisingly January and February is the start of some of these warm season crops for us. So planting in December is not that far-fetched if you want to work on potting these plants up and having them ready for planting out into the garden in February or March, depending on your your last frost date. The first step in planting is to figure out what you want to grow and then draw out a quick design of where you want to put those plants. Take into account that you will have some cool season plants still in the ground all the way till summer, things like garlic and onions. So you're going to have to plan around those. If you need some help with your garden planner, head down in the description below and pick up my free garden planning ebook. I love this planner. I use it myself. It's on its third version at this point, so if you got one of the earlier versions, make sure to get an updated one. It includes a ton of information like planting and harvesting timeline charts, my favorite varieties, worksheets for seed starting, fertilizer scheduling, and a harvest tracker. I also have a section for drawing out your in-ground or raised bed gardens and a container garden drawing area, which is really cool because it's drawn out kind of like a green stalk. Everything you need. Just head down in their description and click the link. It will send you to a page to enter your email address, and then I'll send you the electronic version. If you have some suggestions on improvement of the planner, head down into the comments and leave me a note. I'm always happy to make adjustments. This planner is for you, so I'm always enhancing it so it works best. The other big thing to do is go through your seeds and see what you need to reorder. Nothing is worse than getting excited about growing some tomatoes only to open the pack and you only have one seed left. This includes things like seed potatoes, so don't forget those. I like Grand Tetons Organics for my potatoes if you want to check them out.